Hello and welcome to the Hellraiser blog. Please, if you enjoyed today's blog, hit the subscribe button. We love subscribes. Today's Hellraiser blog going to look at Anthony Joshua versus Alexander Povetkin. Big fight coming up, big stadium fight. I'm actually really looking forward to it. I've heard a lot of people. I mean, I do understand. This fight maybe 2 years ago would have been an absolutely brilliant fight. Now I think some of the sharpness has come off Povetkin in his last few performances. Also the fact that Anthony Joshua seems to have grown a bit wiser in his own tactics. You know, he's been a lot less, like if you look at him against Carlos Takam and in his last fight with Joe Parker, he seemed quite reserved, quite conservative, safety first, not quite to the levels that we saw with Klitschko. Please God, don't let him go the full hog all that way. But in the fight against Povetkin, you couldn't really blame Joshua for engaging those sort of boring tactics because Povetkin is dangerous. I mean, Povetkin's best punch is his left hook. He's actually got a good right hand. He sort of hooks his right hand. He has like a coming around the outside right hand that could prove problematic. I mean, if we look at, as I've documented in previous blogs, if you saw the blog I did when he was boxing Carlos Takam, I already predicted in that fight, okay, look, I've spotted Joshua seems to have problems with these short, mobile inside guys. Right back to the amateurs, there's a stoppage defeat, although Povetkin isn't a southpaw, but it's still a real, I think, a potential banana skin. If it had been when Povetkin was a little bit fresher, a little bit younger, I'd have said it was a real big potential banana skin. I still think that there can be problems. Basically, the tactics of the fight, I think, from Joshua's point of view, he's got to keep it long. He's got to use his feet to move sideways so that he can maintain that distance for as long as he can. And I think he needs to kill the pace of the fight for the first 3 or 4 rounds. He needs to break the rhythm and do everything that he can to make it a slow-paced fight. I think Povetkin is the other way. He needs this to escalate. He needs to engage with Joshua. If Joshua can keep it at long range and keep the pace of the fight very slow and move away maybe from Povetkin's left hook, so move to his left, certainly for the first 3 or 4 rounds, until Povetkin, look, he's no spring chicken now. He's come up to, I think, 40 years old. And he has looked shot-worn in his last 2 fights. There's also been issues with Povetkin with PEDs, performance-enhancing drugs. And, we're led to believe, or I think we do believe now because of the testing, that he won't be taking drugs for this. Well, if he was taking drugs before and he isn't now, potentially that could impact on the performance, like maybe take an edge off it slightly. My main reason why I think Povetkin might be a little bit slower is in recent performances, what we've seen of him. He's a very good fighter, a very dangerous fighter, Olympic Games champion. He's a good guy. And he's got experience, which may work actually in his favour. But my issue with it is that he has looked a little bit jaded, and whereas Joshua seems to have slowed down through choice, like as if he's made a conscious decision to be more conservative when he boxed Joe Parker. I was disappointed when he boxed Parker in the tactics that he chose to engage in, but maybe if he'd have rolled the dice, he'd have taken that chance. He might have come unstuck. Joe Parker's a dangerous opponent when he wants to be. I say when he wants to be because when he boxed Joshua, he didn't really, let loose. And when he boxed Dillian Whyte, he literally threw the fight away, in my opinion. He didn't engage until far too late, and when he did, actually, he was very successful. So he really needed to get going early. Povetkin, I think, really has to. He has no choice. He's shorter, meaning that he's not going to jab Joshua. I don't think he's going to outskill him. I think he needs to engage. I think he needs to close down the distance. He needs to have very quick feet, and put Joshua in a position where Joshua has to gamble himself. If he doesn't, if he stands off, then I think there's a big chance that he can run into problems against Joshua, because it'll be very frustrating. And what he doesn't want is to have like a huge backlog in points where he then has to not really be so skillful in how he closes the distance and has to start charging in, because we know Joshua can take him out, and and he seems like a very durable guy, Povetkin, so I don't expect Joshua to take him out with a big shot early. But if Povetkin gives away those early rounds through having slow feet, through letting Joshua dictate the pace of the fight, he could easily, because Joshua's a skillful guy, he could easily lag behind, meaning that then he has to have the stoppage, he has to come forwards, and he has to take risks that maybe he wouldn't have to if he can himself dictate the pace. And I mean, it's going to be a real task for him to do that, because to get past Joshua's jab, I can tell you, I mean, there's not many heavyweights in the world, certainly today, that can get past that jab. It involves gambling. You have to take chances in order to get your feet in close against a guy that can wipe you out with one punch. I think what Joshua needs to do is vary his jab. Like I say, use his feet to go sideways whilst varying his jab. So that means like stiff jabs, followed by fast jabs, followed by double jabs, followed by dummying with the jab, and then maybe coming with a right hand, then back on the jab. And that will be key to Joshua taking control and winning this. I say that I don't think that at any point in the fight Joshua can completely control it, but if he can, it will be in the second half of the fight, after having worn down Povetkin for the first half. If Joshua gambles, if Joshua starts sort of getting involved in a slugfest, then this is anyone's fight. Then, in my opinion, you know, this can go badly wrong for him, because Povetkin definitely punches hard enough to do that. I mean, look, if we look at the problems that Joshua had with Dillian Whyte earlier in his career, that we've seen him sort of struggle with even Klitschko. And I mean, look, Klitschko versus Povetkin was a horrible fight. It was, I'd say, one-sided, and to watch it was a terrible spectacle. I wouldn't necessarily use those as yardsticks, that Klitschko beat Povetkin, Joshua beat Klitschko, therefore, you know, that come to the conclusion that Joshua necessarily therefore beats Povetkin. Because for me, the Klitschko that fought Joshua was noticeably faded compared to the one that boxed Povetkin. Povetkin did not take the chance, if you like, for me, and it's easy for me to say I'm not taking the punches from Klitschko, but I think you'd have had more chance of beating Klitschko if he'd have taken the chance, if he'd have said, okay, right, well, I might get knocked out here, but also if I'm going to knock him out, I'm going to have to engage, and I'm going to have to take these chances and try and slip and counter, not slip and hold or slip and step outside of range. A lot of the holding was initiated by Klitschko, and I think the reason why Klitschko was doing that was because he knows Povetkin's a dangerous fighter, and I think he's still dangerous, and I think that makes this a really intriguing fight. I think prediction-wise, I actually think we're going to see a cautious Joshua. I don't think we're going to see him throw caution to the wind. I think he's started to get to that point in his career where he's realised that's very risky. You know, it's what the fans want to see and they go wild about, but you can't survive long term in heavyweight boxing when you're taking chances. You know, keep rolling the dice. Eventually, you will roll some sixes, but eventually you'll roll some ones as well, and that will wipe you out. So I'm thinking Joshua very cautious first 4-5 rounds, and Joshua to take over in the second half of the fight. Whether he stops Povetkin or not, I'm not convinced. I mean, I'd like to say, yeah, he'll stop him in the last sort of quarter of the fight, but I sort of think that he might just sort of decide to jab his way through. Guys, thanks for watching, and please give us a subscribe. Thanks very much. See you then. Bye bye.